esse est principi. To be is to be perceived. Berkeley, or as my professor would say, Berkeley, is the British empiricist that we'll be studying today. So in no particular order, I'll be recapping these main ideas. Immaterialism as radical empiricism, materialism as skeptical nonsense, how it is that both of these are based on Locke's primary and secondary qualities, and the idea of spiritual substance, God, versus material substance, matter. So, with the definitions, immaterialism is a form of mental monism. It holds that all entities and phenomena are composed of or are reducible to immaterial spirits or minds or ideas in those minds. Materialism is another form of monism, material, that holds that all entities and phenomena are composed of or are reduced to matter or material forces. So here's the problem. How do we define mind and how do we define matter? Mind, most probably, I feel like can be defined in a different video about social sciences or metaphysics. So today we're gonna really work on what the fuck is matter, which is Berkeley's main target for his work, the three dialogues between Helias and Philinus. So let's begin. If you really think about it, what makes matter more reliable than the mind as the substratum of the world? So substratum is the Latin derivative of substance. That is to say, sub being something from below and stance being something that holds. So substance is what supports or bears the quality of an object. Okay, substance, a support for qualities. What are qualities? So this goes back to Locke, who distinguishes primary from secondary qualities. Locke is a materialist empiricist scientist who affirms that material objects causes ideas by virtue of their qualities. Primary qualities are measurable aspects of physical reality that precedes a body, matter. Still don't know what that is. But primary qualities is solidity, extension, size, figure, shape, bulk, mass, and mobility or motion. Example, no matter the level of division of a grain, like rice, you can keep cutting it up and up and up, but there will always remain some size, shape, mass, or motion. This was the definition that was given. So essentially, these qualities remain inseparable from matter. Again, still don't know what that is, and is essential to matter. They exist in material objects independent of their being perceived by the mind because they are supported by matter. So something can exist regardless of whether I perceive it, and kind of makes sense, but let's continue. While, however, keeping in mind the key word of perceive. Secondary qualities. These are what that is not in the body of the object, but in ours. It is what is subjective. So I'm quoting Locke, and it says, these are the powers of material objects to cause ideas or sensations of colors, sounds, tastes, and smells, and the mind of a normal perceiver under normal observation conditions. So primary qualities are a good picture, a fairly accurate representation of primary qualities themselves, dubious, while secondary qualities do not resemble anything in a material object as it does not correspond to the qualities in the object. We start to see a divide happening here as we go from the qualities of the object, primary qualities, that do not correspond with the ideas of the mind, secondary qualities. Okay, we don't know what matter or material is besides something that is not subjective and seems to have a more concrete reality, tangible reality compared to what we understand as ideas. So, what are ideas? Don't worry, we're still holding on to the word to perceive, but what are ideas? Locke defines ideas in the mind to be caused by material objects existing in the external world. They represent those objects by ways of resembling them. Okay. So this is called the causal representative theory of perception. In this way, materialism is a form of indirect or representative realism. So in other words, Locke claims that yes, the material objects exist independent of them being perceived. However, when we do perceive these objects, it is only through ideas. Therefore, our experience of material objects existing in the external world is always reduced by our awareness of ideas existing in our minds. This doesn't sound very concrete. So, to perceive a material object, therefore, according to Locke, is to perceive an idea or a mental image. That which is produced by the causal process originating in the object and which represents the object by way of resembling it. So, we don't see the object. Essentially, we never actually perceive the material object or the physical object, if we're gonna not be biased, physical object, but only the effect caused by it as the idea. And from the effect that is the idea that we have of the object, we maintain that there is matter. Again, what is that? I mean, the only definition that we kind of have of that is that it is what explains how it is that the physical object remains in the world even if we don't perceive it as material substance. So we have here Locke's definition of perception and idea, which according to Berkeley leads us to scepticism, the concept that which we are never able to arrive at the truth. And going back to the traditional Latin definition of the truth, adequatio intellectus et re, an adequation of intellect, mind, and thing, that which is the physical object in reality. So, does this not mean that the materialist conception of reality suggests the impossibility of ever achieving this adequation? As Locke puts it, the mind perceives nothing but its own ideas. So, enter Berkeley with Immaterialism, the radical form of empiricism, where it exists only that which is perceived. Il n'existe que ce qui est perçu. Or that, as an empiricist, what we lack in experience is only but a belief. Remember here that we have Locke's definition that we can only ever perceive ideas. So Berkeley is remaining in the coherent understanding of materialism, but he is highlighting its absurdity. So now the question is how we've come to associate matter of primary qualities as that which causes secondary qualities. Or how is it that an individual substance can cause our ideas? So let's move on from Locke's beta form of immaterialism to now attacking Descartes, and specifically his example of the melting wax candle. Essentially, as the wax candle melts, it loses its fragrance, changes in color, etc. But that its measurable qualities, its matter, is judged as the same piece of wax, i.e., the one and same substance, this wax candle, persists through its changes in secondary qualities. So here's how we get to scepticism. The real world of scientists like Locke, Boyle, and Descartes, the true nature of the physical world is very different to everyday experience. The real world is nothing more than colorless, odorless, tasteless atoms moving in some void without substance or reality, as the only thing that exists is the Cartesian pure extension that is matter. So again, we look at this gap being forged even more and more clearly between the world as it is in reality and the world as it appears to us. Yet, we need to access both X, what is, and Y, how it appears, to verify if X resembles Y, or if, again, there is an adequation between thought and thing, thought, mind, and reality. Help us, Berkeley! An idea, according to Berkeley, is not the object of reasoning or understanding of Descartes Locke, but the object of the spirit. It is not an objective reality, a resemblance between thing and its idea, that which is caused by the thing, as if a rock has the will to create an effect in our minds. It is, however, a formal reality, a work of the human spirit, where an idea can maybe resemble another idea, an idea in the mind resembling another idea in the world. Therefore, we have a complete displacement of things as ideas that exist only in the spirit. An idea is therefore a real thing. Enter God. The impressed ideas on our senses is by the author of nature, or God, in the form of sensation. Again, the sensation or secondary subjective qualities is therefore a real thing, directly and immediately an idea in the mind, in comparison again to the primary qualities, which are only representative or immediate because again, we can only perceive ideas but never the object itself. So if you don't believe in God, the argument is cosmological. I'm not the creator of every object that exists in the real world, therefore there must be a cause greater than me, this being more likely to be an all-powerful, omnipresent God than a rock. Dieu, or God, is therefore the spiritual substance that supports the world when I'm not looking. I do not perceive the world in God, but through God, as God creates feelings in me. This is more of the continuity argument. how the world continues being even if I don't perceive it, which helps the cosmological argument of I am this finite being and therefore this finite spirit. So therefore the thing, the real substance that can actually hold the whole world is God, God's spirit, this omnipresent giant spirit. I think I've made my point. So before we end, let us try to define matter. In the second of the three dialogues between Helios and Philinus, we ended at the definition of matter as Helios puts it, as an entity. What is an entity? It is neither substance nor incident, thinking nor extended being, neither cause, instrument nor occasion, but something entirely unknown, distinct from all of this. So something entirely unknown, which Philinus, the stand-in for Berkeley, dismisses as abstract nonsense and the consequence of the dust, obscurity, or veil of language. And on the other hand, if we were to go back to Descartes, and if matter is to be defined as what remains when secondary qualities changes, Berkeley in the first dialogue gets us to reflect on the idea that if you take away all of physical objects' sensible qualities, there remains nothing sensible. Said differently, take away what is sensible, as in secondary qualities, touch, taste, sound, and you're left with nothing tangible. We don't have matter. Because again, we don't have the definition, as in, well, we have something entirely unknown. And then now we're saying that if matter is supposed to be something that exists in physical reality and we take away all the tangible qualities, all the subjective qualities, how can we actually still say that we have a physical object, a tangible object in reality? This reduction, or as Locke calls it, natural unity, is innate in the natural substance. This idea is refuted by Berkeley's claim that things have no unity beyond that which the mind imposes upon them. So basically what it's trying to say that everything, the reason why you would confound or associate primary and secondary qualities is because the mind unites them. Everything is in the mind and it's not in this so-called thing called matter as material substance. So physical object is therefore not matter, but a collection of ideas in the mind. We've already said this. This idealism, that is immaterialism, does not deny the existence of ordinary physical objects or a tangible world, but simply that their existence is dependent upon their being perceived by the mind. Esse est percipi. To exist is to be perceived. Existence is not verified by our absurd abstractions, but by our perception. When I announced the video on Berkeley, I mentioned that there was an Einstein quantum mechanics element. So here's a quote. Many commentators have seen in Berkeley's philosophy of science an anticipation of the views of figures like James Clerk Maxwell, Ernst Mach, and Albert Einstein, which finally succeeded in displacing the early modern conception of science. That's all it gave, so I'm going to give you more with Schrödinger. So this is the Canto edition, and it has both the nature and the Greeks, and science and humanism. So I'll be reading from science and humanism, though I recommend both because I'm a big fan. So science and humanism, it's between page 151, numbers. And also, like, I know when you say quantum mechanics, everyone's like numbers. So here is the wave function formula just to satisfy that little need. So I'm going to read this section to you and let's see how it comes together. The alleged breakdown of the barrier between subject and object. It cannot be denied that the new physical aspect of nature of which I have tried to give you some idea by this example is very much more complicated than the old way which I call the classical ideal of uninterrupted continuous description. And as we know, quantum mechanics is known for its term discontinuity. The very serious question arises naturally. Is this new and unfamiliar way of looking at things, which is at variance with the habits of everyday thinking, is it deeply rooted in the facts of observation, so that it has come to stay and will never be got rid of again? Or is it the new aspect perhaps the mark not of objective nature, but the setting of the human mind, of the stage that our understanding of nature has reached at present? This is an extremely difficult question to answer, because it is not even absolutely clear what this antithesis means, objective nature and human mind. For on the one hand, I undoubtedly form part of nature, while on the other hand, objective nature is known to me as a phenomena of my mind only. But let us return to our question, however poorly it may be formulated. Is the impossibility of a continuous, gapless, uninterrupted description in space and time really founded in incontrovertible facts? The current opinion among physicists is that this is the case. Bohr and Heisenberg have put forward a very ingenious theory about it, which is so easy to explain that it has entered most popular treatises on the subject. I should say, unfortunately, for its philosophical implication is usually misunderstood. I'm going to argue against it, but first I must summarize it briefly. It runs as follows. We cannot make any factual statement about a given natural object or physical system without getting in touch with it. This touch is a real physical interaction. Even if it consists only in looking at the object, the latter must be hit by light rays and reflect them into the eye or into some instrument of observation. This means that the object is interfered with by observing it. You cannot obtain any knowledge about an object while leaving it strictly isolated. The theory goes on to assert that this disturbance is neither irrelevant nor completely surveyable. Thus, after any number of painstaking observations, the object is left in a state of which some features, the last observed ones, are known, but others, those interfered with by the last observation, are not known or not accurately known. This state of affairs is offered as the explanation why no complete, gapless description of a physical object is possible. But obviously, these interferences, even when granted, tell me so far only that such a description cannot be actually accomplished, but they do not convince me that I should not be able to form in my mind a complete gapless model from which everything I can observe can be correctly inferred or foreseen to the degree of certainty which the incompleteness of my observation allows. I say this interpretation suggests itself that there is a fully determined physical object in existence, but I can never know all about it. However, this would be a complete misunderstanding of what Bohr and Heisenberg and those who follow them actually mean. They mean that the object has no existence independent of the observing subject. Pause. They mean that recent discoveries in physics have pushed forward to the mysterious boundaries between the object and the subject, whereby has turned out not to be a sharp boundary at all. We are to understand that we never observe an object without its being modified or tinged by our own activity in observing it. We are to understand that under the impact of our refined methods of observation and thinking about the results of our experiments, the mysterious boundary between the subject and the object has broken down. And then I skip. I think that it's true that in previous centuries, when discussing this question, one has in mind two things, viz. A direct physical impression caused by the object in the subject, and B, the state of the subject that receives the impression. As against this, in the present order of idea and direct physical causal influence between the two is regarded as mutual. It is said that there is also an unavoidable and uncontrollable impression from the side of the subject onto the object. This aspect is new, and I should say more adequate anyhow. For physical action always is interaction. It always is mutual. What remains doubtful to me is only just this: whether it is adequate to term one of the two physical interacting systems the subject. I've thought about this, but I'll get to this maybe in another video. For the observing mind is not a physical system. It cannot interact with any physical system, and it might be better to reserve the term subject for the observing mind. Voila, voila. That is what I have for you today in terms of Berkeley and its quantum mechanics implications. I hope you found it helpful, and I don't know, maybe I'll make more quantum mechanic videos if you're enjoying them and I'm enjoying making them. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for your time. Bye.